What's going down, everybody? Brainsmasher is here to save the day with From the Vaults number 57, 56, something like that. It's been a while. You may not realize it, but my last 3 videos, or maybe 4, were all shot on the same day about 2 months ago, and I kind of just spread them out. Been really busy. Gonna keep on being really busy. I'd like to try, if I could, to stick to somewhat of a weekly upload schedule, but I don't know. Things could get out of hand, but whatever. I'm never gonna go away. Anyways, this is about my CD collection. We're gonna be talking about a stack of records here that are kind of unremarkable. I don't know. It's not that great of a grab, but I put on a great record behind us so that adds a little bit of levity to it. Hope you can hear it. I hope you you can't get a copy of this. In fact, this is really hard to come by. None other than Autumnal Winds. This is Venerari Sacra Mysteria. Man, love, love, love this record. If you don't know what this is, it could kind of be said that this is pre-Obsequii. 2004, so this is 15 years ago. This fine young man has been a guest on this very YouTube channel. Yeah, it's a great full-length record. Only came out on CDR 15 years ago, but I think you should be able to find it for download or YouTube or something like that. But it's a brilliant precursor to Obsequii, and it rules. So, in the background. As a matter of fact, it is so rare to get copies of this album that I believe this is Tanner's only personal copy that was given to me. Tanner and I are in this like giving war kind of deal where we try and give each other the coolest or biggest present or whatnot. Tanner is winning because he wrote me into his will, and that I will inherit his record collection should he perish, which he probably will if he still smokes cigarettes. Trying to get him to quit so that I don't get his record collection. Anyway, off fucking topic. Let's get into a stack of stuff here. Like I said, finishing out the Fs. I don't know. There might be another stack of Fs after this, but whatever. First off, we have, and you'll probably have a hard time seeing the cover of this, but the band is called Forndom. Project, solo project, I don't know. It kind of seems weird to call it a band. It's not really, definitely not metal. It's a very meditative, solemn, quiet, kind of atmospheric, spiritual music. The album is called, I'm saying this is a character I've never encountered, Daudra Dura. But it's on Nordvis. It came out 2016. Shouldn't have a hard time finding out or figuring out which one it is. So yeah, this is just a really, really immersive. It just sucks you in way down into this really just kind of a quiet, solemn, dark kind of place. But it isn't menacing or in any way. It's comforting. It really does this kind of, it really does this thing for me, and I think people who like this record, that it presents this kind of familiar, calming kind of dark solemnity that not a lot of records do. I think a lot of kind of ambient, spiritual, kind of neo-folk kind of stuff tries to kind of get there and allude to that kind of level of depth and sincerity, but this Forndom album really, really does it effectively, more than I've heard probably any other do. And in that regard, it winds up being a pretty unique listen. Not a whole lot to look at there, but I mean, it represents what it is. There isn't a whole lot going on with this band, but it is it does something for me too. I think that in the last few years I've come to respect about a lot of other records is that it uses silence as an element to its music. And you spend so much time listening to metal that just refuses to let any silence breathe and just occupy the vastness of the potential sound. And Forndom, operates pleasantly within that silent kind of realm. I hope I'm not sounding like an insane man, but we're getting a little heady here, if you ask me. So the next one we've got here is from Fortaleza, Metal Noir Quebecois. I don't know, I'm kind of new to this band, honestly. They have been around for a really long time. I was always kind of skeptical of... I didn't know what this band was about. I always wondered if they were like kind of NS or sketchy or whatnot, but I haven't really looked into it much, and I really ought to, given that that's kind of what I've been trying to do lately. But I have a good feeling that they're just, proud of Quebec and not really necessarily any of the other egregious opinions that you hear about that kind of stuff. But this record is fantastic. I would say it's maybe their second best, second only to their most current release, I believe. Zines pour la Rebellion. Both of these came out on Sepulchral Productions, which is a label that I feel like doesn't get enough support or attention. Quebecois label. But I'm sure a lot of you guys know or are familiar with this one, the Themes pour la Rebellion. Just blazing fast, melodic black metal, just really cleverly produced. So that the guitars just kind of occupy that huge upper register and range there. Just brilliantly written, great riffs. I guess I would just kind of like to hear them do something a little... I feel like they perfected their style on Themes pour la Rebellion, but I would maybe like to see them kind of start to diversify their sound going forward. But speaking of diverse and... odd and weird, Frank fucking Zappa, Cheap Thrills, no booklet on this one. I don't know where I picked this up. I am not a big Zappa fan. I don't dislike him whatsoever. It's just that he has one of the most vast discographies of any artist in all of recorded history. And he is a brilliant genius. So, I don't know, Cheap Thrills is a record I should probably listen to more often, but it's not very often that I'm in the mood for it. I do find a lot of his material kind of off-putting or maybe a little bit too challenging. I know there's some dudes who are just like, give me any Frank Zappa and I'm fucking in. I don't really like the Mothers of Invention kind of era of stuff, and I know he's got lots of other great records I think that people would say, well, if you like Cheap Thrills, you would love yada yada yada, and that's fine. I'm certainly open to it, and I would probably buy them if I found them or was in the mood. I don't know. I had a more progressive kind of experimental phase many years ago, and that was when I discovered his other album, Jazz from Hell, in a green Ryko disc jewel case here. Now this is a complete departure, as far as I know, from what most people know of Frank Zappa, who is mainly a guitar composer. This is putting Frank Zappa in front of a Clavinova keyboard or organ. And Clavinova is, I think, knowing a little bit about old school synths, I believe it's the first MIDI synthesizer. To give you some context, this came out in 1986. And so you put Frank Zappa, you take the guitar away from Frank Zappa and tell him to put him in front of a Clavinova keyboard, which actually maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not the first MIDI. Maybe it's the first keyboard that actually utilizes sampling. So you'll have clarinet, violin, percussions, all the different kind of array of like different kind of cheesy sounding type of instruments. And Frank Zappa composed an insanely complex, irritating, obnoxious, and wholly unique album with Jazz from Hell. It kind of speaks for itself, but it is probably my favorite Frank Zappa record. And it is one of my favorite records of the kind of weird ilk. So check that out if that sounds good to you. Another one, you might be surprised to find this in my video. This is Fred Schneider of the B-52s, yes, with just Fred. This is kind of cool. I guess first off I would say forget what you know about Fred Schneider, but I don't know, maybe don't. The reason I have this though is that this is a record. It's kind of weird. The first half of the album was written by an instrumental band, and then the second half of the album was written by an instrumental band, who I'll get to in a second. And Fred sang over the top of all of their songs, and then just kind of put it out as an album. I'm gonna have to look. The reason I got this is because Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet was one of the two bands that composed the instrumental music for this record. Now, Shadowy Men are one of my favorite bands. They're kind of like a surf fucking band, but they say they aren't a surf band, but you know, for lack of a better term, I'm gonna call them that. They actually have a song called We're Not a Fucking Surf Band. You would probably know them if you know the theme song to Kids in the Hall. Let me see, the other band, Deadly Cupcake, is that right? Yeah. So Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet did the second half, and the first half was done by a band called Deadly Cupcake, which I think was actually just like a studio project. I don't really know much about it, but it is interesting how well the album kind of flows. It's really, really fun listen, and I just kind of wanted to hear Shadowy Men on a Shadowy Planet, what they would sound like if they had a singer. And Fred Schneider is a pretty fun, entertaining kind of songwriter, so I don't know, it's fun. There is a version of Lime and the Coconut, the Harry Nilsson song, and it's pretty funny. I played in a band that I proposed that we do a cover of his cover of that song, and I don't know, I really liked it. Anyway, next, getting back to metal, I'm sorry. Frightmare, bringing back the bloodshed. So this is just like the perfect example of a Razorback Records release. Came out in 2006. Gosh, it seems like it's been a really long time since then. But it's just like super violent, riffy, kind of thrashy, sort of death metal. Meh, it's just metal. It kind of toes the line between all of those genres. I don't know. I can see these guys like being like tour packaged with Municipal Waste and Toxic Holocaust or something like that. They're just way better than both of those bands. So yeah, it's just fun, chunky. Maybe Ghoul, I guess, would be kind of another comparison. I don't really like them either. But this is super fun, and I'm pretty new to it since Justin Stubbs introduced me to this band. But it's kind of a rarity as far as I know. Some Razorback Records releases, not a whole lot to look at. There's a shit ton of lyrics here. Kind of hard to find. So I was lucky enough to find this pop up on Discogs and snagged it. So gory, stupid, fun, with really good riffs. And yeah, speaking of riff wizardry, it has been a long time since I listened to this, but Frederick Thorndahl's Special Defects. The album is called Soul Nature Within. So, I am still, and have been for a really long time, a huge fan of the first couple of Meshuggah records. I don't own Self Cage or None or the yellow one with the Statue of Liberty on it, but Destroy, Erase, Improve was one of my very first metal records, and that floored me back in the day, and I still to this day love listening to it every now and then, and it still fucking rules. But this is the guitar player's solo project. It came out on Relapse back in '99, and it also features Frank Zappa drummer Mats Morgan on it. He is no, I'm sorry, Mats Morgan is his band. Morgan Agren is the name of the drummer on this, and he has worked with Zappa and lots of other like proggy kind of technical sort of acts. So this is super fun, experimental, weird guitar wizardry kind of progginess, but it's captivating. It's interesting. And my buddies and I used to sit around getting baked, listening to this record. It is just, it's so fucking bizarre. I don't know a whole lot about technical music, but from what I understand of its technicality, is it's just experimenting with layering different polyrhythms that happen to kind of coincide and what's the word I'm looking for? Sync up at different kind of time periods. It's a wholly bizarre experience. There's 33 tracks on it, I want to say, and they're all kind of really short. It's just a really bizarre kind of thing. It might be pretty dated for what it is. I haven't listened to it in a really long time. There's some really fascinating studio footage of both Frederick Thorndahl and Morgan Egren as a duo, just playing some of the tracks from this, and it is fucking incredible. The technicality capable on those guys is just out of this fucking world. I kind of liked Meshuggah's Chaos Sphere record, but after that, I really didn't give a shit about them. I never expected that band to blow up like they did, but whatever. Next, we have a band called From Beyond. The record is called Sounds of the Grave. And you would think that maybe this would be a pretty cool death metal release from looking at it, but you would be wrong. Last time I revisited this record, which wasn't too long ago, I remember thinking how much this fucking sounds like Pantera. And man, if there is one thing I fucking hate in this world, it is Pantera. They can do no right. Yeah, this came out on some Polish label, and my buddy Ron gave me this, and I've never liked it. So this song from Autumnal Winds was on the very first Obsequiae record, so we get to hear kind of a more drawn out drum machine version of this track, which I think is the title track on it. Next we have Front Beast, Black Spells of the Damned. I've never really quite dove into this band as much as I think some people do. They're kind of just like that. They occupy this kind of like lower echelon of bands that I maybe at one time kind of listened to here and there, but I don't know, I haven't really stood the test of time. I think I have this on LP also. It's kind of like somewhere between Burzum-y, but also kind of thrashy sometimes. This is kind of one of those savant kind of guys that has more output than he ought to. And I think he's done a good job in doing so of bringing himself to a level of attention that he might not deserve. Or maybe I just haven't heard the right records that are the reason for his fandom. I'm not sure, but it's okay stuff. He's got a shit ton of releases, and Hell's Headbangers will, like, at the drop of a hat, put out any of his releases. So I've also got another Front Beast and Mephisto split. I'm not sure if I've lost the back to this or if there isn't one. This is kind of like a weird... It's just a split between these two bands. I wouldn't be surprised if I've actually never played this. Yeah, I am recalling zero information about this. I'm sure it's mediocre. Speaking of mediocre and ending on a really poopy note, this is Frozen Ocean with Vanvid Sanger. Frozen Ocean have at least one killer full length that I was listening to a couple of winters ago. I never got around to buying it. It was actually kind of hard to find. But I did wind up picking this up in a Red Stream order, I think, a couple of years ago for a couple of bucks, thinking I couldn't go wrong with any Frozen Ocean. But once I got it, man, it fucking sucks. It's like if somebody did like a half-assed attempt at making Iltjarn kind of music, just stripped down, minimalistic, bare bones, not even atmospheric kind of black metal. and did it with a drum machine that's poorly programmed and sounds like shit, and the guitars are just huge. It left such a sour taste in my mouth that I'm probably going to get rid of this at some point, but it's just like, it's not worth anything to anybody as far as I can tell, so it's just a total ditch. But I'm still open to probably getting a copy of the other Frozen Ocean full length that I liked when I heard it. My take on this, I guess, is probably they were just kind of wanting to do something a little different. It's just an EP with 8 songs on this thing? I think so. It's still kind of short from what I remember. Maybe I just didn't get all the way fucking through the full length. No, it's a really short EP. Looks like it's about 15 minutes long. Speaking of getting rid of things, I've got a stack of LPs I'm trying to sell on Discogs, just to thin out the herd a little bit. Get rid of some shit that's kind of not agreeable anymore. So check out the link to my Discogs down below or in the intro and whatnot. Thanks for watching. Might be my last video for a while. I've got a lot of shit coming up to keep me busy, but it's still a priority to stay in touch with you guys because I really enjoy it, and you guys are my buds, and yeah, I could go on, but I won't. See you next time.